150 men sitting in a room, watching, putting their screens on and getting ready to learn about money, to learn about generating wealth. And I see guys showing up 30 minutes, 40 minutes early. That's why we put out the videos, because we recognize people are going to show up early. That's somebody who's deeply thinking about their future, somebody who's considering what they want to achieve in their lives. And I find that simply amazing. First of all, it's to applaud you for taking the time to be in this session and saying, hey, you know what? I could learn something. And that's an amazing trait that you have, because if you consider it, this invitation went out to thousands of people. But in this room, we've got a couple of hundred who said, you know what, this is for me, and they've taken their time to be in this same space. That shows humility. It shows that you're willing to say, you know what, I may know quite a few things. And hey, ladies, I was about to say ladies and gentlemen. There are no ladies in this room. No ladies allowed, please. Gentlemen, my brothers. That idea of humility and understanding that not just because humility is not saying that I don't know anything. No. Humility is recognizing I know a few things, but guess what? I could learn more. That's what this is about. And in this room, I applaud everybody who said, you know what, let me come with a notebook. And I've come with my own notebook, pen, ready to take down notes, to learn from each other, to learn even from the questions that come. This is a time, I think as the Bible says, as iron sharpens iron, that we're going to be in a room in which simply by interaction, it causes us to be sharper. It causes us to be more effective. And that's what we're in this room for. Guys, this is no joke. We've been in business here at Centonomy for, this is now just over 14 years. And you can imagine the number of stories that have come through, thousands and thousands of stories. But I'm troubled and I'm concerned, gentlemen, because in our classes, still until this day, I'll explain the history of it, but until this day, we still have about a 70-30% split when it comes to our personal finance and investment classes. As far as ladies and gentlemen are concerned, 70% of the class is still women, and about 30% over this period of time. And this is something of great concern to me, because I'm wondering where the men are at. Now, there is history to it. Guys, please, I'm not here to place the blame on anyone. I'm just saying there's history to it. When Centonomy began, our founder, Washeke Ndwati, she's an amazing lady. She started speaking to women. In fact, the very first event that we held, similar to this, but that time it was a physical event. And guys, we're coming back for a physical event after this. This is the last, at least in the near future, Men and Money event that we're going to do online. I want us to do a few more that are physical. And we're coming to Kampala as well, Benjamin. Don't worry, we are coming. We'll be there as well. In that event, she began to speak to the ladies, and she was saying, ladies. I remember it because I attended the very first event. Don't ask me why I was in a women's event. I was a supplier to Centonomy. I was running my own company, and I was offering my services to Centonomy. And so we were three gentlemen in that room. It was me, I think there was another supplier, and it was just the suppliers, right? And we're standing at the back, right? And she started speaking, and she was saying, ladies, this is what's happening. The men are meeting. Men are in clubs. They're on the golf courses. They're in pubs, and then in various places. And men are meeting, and they're discussing money and how to make money and in business and everything. And here we were, all the three of us men at the back of the room, and we're saying, guys, which clubs are these? And which places are these where guys are actually meeting? Because even on the golf course, yes, come on. In this room, there are people who know this. You go to the golf course and you go to the club and you go to the various places. There are some guys who are sitting and actually having real discussions, but a lot of them are just there to have fun and to let go of the stress that is in the room. So the three of us was just looking, where are these clubs that these guys are meeting? That's not the environment that we're in. There was an assumption that this is the thought process that's going in, and it has been proven by research over time. And you can go online and do the research yourself. And you'll see this. Globally, gentlemen, you will see that generally, for various factors, there is the socioeconomic history, there are social histories, cultural histories that have enabled men at certain levels to be extremely successful, okay? So that there were barriers to women entering into certain job types and different areas like that. That's there, that's a fact. And we're not trying to speak against that in any way. That's a truth of the matter, right? But gentlemen, please note, it is not all men. And this is something that we need to begin to realize, that yes, the cultural and the environment that we're talking about, the socioeconomic environment, allowed for a few men to be extremely successful. And in any culture that you're talking about, those are the ones who become the billionaires that we're talking about, right? How many billionaires are there, if you think about it, and multi-millionaires, if you talk about it at that level? There are very few. If you're talking about, hey, on this continent of Africa, how many billionaires are there? And I'm just talking about just this continent of Africa, because I know majority of us who are tuning in this session, in the chat box, how many do you think there actually are? Do you think they would pass 100,000 out of over 1.3 billion Africans? Would it even pass that? Would it, here, let's make it, would it pass 10,000, gentlemen? So would it pass 1,000? Actual dollar billionaires, would it? So when we consider, and this is the thing that we need to begin to understand, men, it is very few men who are actually functioning. Thank you, Ronald. It's very few men who are actually functioning at that top level. And yes, because a lot of attention is given to them, a lot of attention, they're the ones on the cover of magazines, they're the ones who we watch and pay attention to and we look at. It seems like men are doing well, but gentlemen, can I give you the truth? Can I speak to you in truth? There's a study that goes beyond that we were looking at, a global study, and there's some material which you can share after this. We'll probably share in the description of the videos that will be online after this, that begins to speak about what this gentleman, overall, over time, women who are involved, listen to this, women who are involved in the economic, how would I say, the word has left me for a second, who are economically empowered. What does that mean? That they're actually part of the economy. They're buying and selling, they're employed. Women around the world, this is a global study. Women around the world who are employed, who are involved in the economic activity, direct economic activity, tend to do better than men overall over time. Why? Because they're engaged. Why? I would hazard a guess, guys, because they're humble. Now we can talk about it, and I know there's lots of other studies that can talk about this, and they'll tell you, oh, listen to this. They'll say, oh, the education system is skewed towards the way women learn. You know, we talk about young boys and girls. Young boys tend to have a lot more energy and try to move around, and their learning processes, yeah? Yeah, thank you so much, Lawrence, for that quick. I knew if I asked the question in a room like this, I'll get the answer. Out of over 1.3, I think we're heading to 1.4 billion Africans, 20 of us. Is that the truth about men, that men are doing well? No, thank you, Lawrence, for answering that question. But here's the thing, even if we talk about the education system, right, and say maybe it's a little bit skewed towards the way girls who are probably a little bit less energetic than the men, even that does not account for the fact that why it is that women tend to do better over time. It doesn't. And what's happening, guys, is that because there is that difference in the way that boys and girls learn, and because that is big, and thank God, guys, I am a father of daughters, and I get excited when I see them doing well in school, and I want them to have a successful life. I do. I'm not here to bash women at all. I always make this joke in the class because I say, in my household, I am the only male in my house. I am the only male, literally. I have daughters, my wife, even the house help who's here is female, even the dog is female. I'm the only male in my house. So please, I am an advocate for women to get empowered, and that's why we love it when we see the women in our classes. But gentlemen, listen to me. If we don't get our act right, we'll be knocked off the table. And it's happening. As I said, that study, gentlemen, shows that women are doing better overall over time when it comes to their financial investments. Why? Because there's a sense, and that's why I started off this, there's a sense of humility in which maybe they're not fighting the ego that we're fighting, gentlemen. Maybe that's the issue. That, we kind of expected to know, that expectation to know. But this troubles me, gentlemen. This troubles me. Can I say why? I started today with fire. I apologize. I've not even introduced myself. I'll get to that. It's just that I've been waiting for this day for so long. Thank you to all those hundreds of men who have shown up in this room. You're doing well already, but it's not enough yet. Let me explain why. Gentlemen, listen to me. There's something that bothers me. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been watching some documentaries online, right? And I am I'm shocked because in each one of them, these are men that I admire, and I feel like they've really inspired me in different ways. Please, if you haven't checked it out, please go onto Netflix and watch Eliud Kipchoge's documentary. It's amazing. Come on, when you see our African brothers succeeding, it's just simply amazing. So have a look at it. It's on Netflix at the moment, Eliud Kipchoge. I also watched another one. I think I've been watching a lot of athletes, but I watched another one about Usain Bolt, and I watched one more about Mike Tyson. And something stood out to me, and I hope it'll stand out to you as well. Each one of these successful gentlemen were coached. And one of the things that bothered me about the coaches, I want you to please please watch those documentaries. Go find, if you can't even watch a documentary, please just go and Google immediately, like Lawrence did it, the fastest way. Go and Google Kipchoge's coach. Go and Google Usain Bolt's coach. Go and Google Tyson's coach. Something stood out to me. None of the coaches would have a chance to physically do as well as their trainees. Like Usain Bolt's coach, he's a fat. No, well, let me be very politically correct. He's heavy. He's overweight. Even the same thing with Mike Tyson's coach, overweight, short compared to the rest of the guys who are there. These guys, the guy who trained Usain Bolt to be to be the fastest human being recorded over 100 meters, probably could not, you could probably beat him down 100 meters, but he was able to get it down there. And I think there's a sense in which we need to apply this. Think about even as far as soccer is concerned, all the amazing coaches that we love. Yes, some of them had a history of being good soccer players, but many of them are not necessarily the best elite that are out there in the world. But they're able to bring out the best in these trainees that they have. And there's a sense in which I want us to get this, gentlemen. You need a coach. You need someone to be able to help you out to see the things that maybe you don't see, to bring out the best in you. Having information, having the skill set will make you a better, successful gentleman in this world. And it does not happen, gentlemen, in a 2-hour webinar like this. It happens when there's consistency and application. So I'm not beating about the bush, gentlemen. I want each one of 300. How many? We are over 300. And I'm sure there are a couple more online watching via YouTube. And I think, where else are we streaming this? On Facebook as well. If you're on those platforms as well, I'm speaking to you as well. I know we're going to hit some big numbers here, and whoever catches up to this later, pay attention to this. You need to take the 101 class, Centonomy 101 class, because what it does is it puts down a foundation upon which you can build the financial plan that you have for your life. It's a skill. You are talented, you are gifted, you have the ability to do multiple things at the same time, but there are certain things that are skill sets that we must build into our systems. It's a skill. It's not something. If you can take your innate abilities, your talents, your gifts, and hone them, that's what a coach does. That's what Usain Bolt's coach was doing, was saying, hey, look, you know, he has scoliosis, which is a bit of the curving of the spine. So he was saying, as a coach, then we need to make your other side slightly stronger, so it gives you a bit more stability along the way. Hey, I noticed that as you're coming down, you drop your left shoulder a little bit more on the third run as you're going to do. Keep your shoulder up, because I'm seeing things that I could not see. And if you've been watching the videos around the Centonomy 101 program, that's what it is. That's the kind of thing it's saying. Hey, this is not a budgeting class called Centonomy 101. It is not a budgeting class, gentlemen. It is to say, hey, guess what? Manage your money a little bit better. That's what you hear at the very beginning. Hey, did you know, gentlemen, how do you give the, what is it called? How do you plan for the future? How do you know how much I need to invest in order to achieve the goal? Good. How does debt work? And what it's doing is it's realigning different sectors of your finances just there. And if we can get this right, listen to me, let's be honest with one another. Those who achieve that level of success that you're talking about here, and all those billionaires that we look up to, and those who are at the top, they are a very small group of people, very small group of people. Now, some of you may get to that level. I pray that you do. But majority of us in this room will never get to that super elite level when it's the Forbes magazine top 500. But guess what? You can live an extremely successful, fulfilled, rich, wealthy life if you take control of your finances and your planning today. And that's what this program does for you, gentlemen. It's not in this 2-hour webinar where you're going to get the information that's going to set you apart and get you to the next level. It is the consistency over time with knowledge that gets you to that level. That's what we're talking about here. So that small nudge, the small nudge to say, have you planned? Have you actually put together goals? Because, gentlemen, this is how we usually do our goals. Guys, in the chat box, real quick, and imagine I will introduce myself shortly, but you probably know me, you've seen in the posters and all that stuff. We'll get to that stuff. In the chat box, I want you to write down, give me just a short description of some of the financial goals that you have. In the chat box, real quick. Real quick, I want to just test a couple of things. Quickly. And those who are on the social media platforms, you can use the, what is it called? It's not called, is it called chat? No, comment section. Words sometimes become difficult as you go along. Morning, guys. Good. I can see all the good morning wishes that are there. Good. So stop there. Stop. That's enough. Thanks, guys. Those who have typed. The very first response that I got was Paul, and Paul said, owning a house. Good. Here's the difference, and this is what I want us to get clearly in our minds. Owning a house. That means absolutely nothing. Hey, today I've come with, I apologize if I'm sounding harsh, but I need to get guys to wake up. That is an insufficient goal. The next one was investment that I got from there. Insufficient goal. Next one was passive income, self-employed, retired at 50 is an insufficient goal. Can I help you with it? It is not specific enough. Why? What home, what house do you want to own? Is it a bed sitter? Is it an iron sheet, corrugated iron sheet house? Is it a brick house? Where is it located? Because imagine right now, most of us in this room, most of us listening to my voice right now can be able to own their own home today. Most of us in this room can be able to own your own home. You can. It's just not the home that you want. So let's do another short exercise just so that we get this right in our minds. Let's do one more short exercise. I want you now to describe the home that you actually want to live in, you want to own. And I mean, describe it in detail. It is, you want to talk about the number of rooms that it is, on the land size that it is, the location that it is, and the price that it's going to cost you. In the chat box, let's see if we can do that a little bit better. Come on, let's go. Rental apartments in the penthouse. Yeah, I don't know what that means. Let's go. Come on, in the chat box. Let's be specific. Financial capacity again. Listen, that's what we're talking about here. So each one of these, Alvin, you almost got there. You didn't put the price. Sydney is now talking. You didn't put the price. Hey, no, you did. I didn't get it very quick. A beautiful 4-bedroom house, all en suite in Limuru. Yes, somebody has seen it. Now with Sydney's plan that he has put down, because he has set the goal, now we can put together a financial plan to get you to it. Listen to me, gentlemen. If we are not specific about the goals that we want to achieve, we cannot achieve them. Each one of those examples that I gave you just now of the athletes that we're talking about had specific goals. If you remember Kipchoge, it was 1 minute, 59 minutes and 59 seconds. That was his goal. It was so specific they could plan for it. Usain Bolt was about saying, I want to break 1 minute. 9 seconds, 9.6 seconds, isn't it? Yes, I forgot the number down the 100 meter. And Tyson was to win and to become the unified world champion, boxing champion, heavyweight boxing champion. These are specific goals. And here's the thing, gentlemen, even if, and this is the power of setting specific goals, even if you do not achieve the specific goal that you're going for, because you're aiming for it, you can come pretty close. Guess what? Not every athlete is at Eliud Kipchoge's level. Not every athlete is at Usain Bolt's level, but many of them are making a very good living from their athletics. Think about it this way. Not every soccer player is Ronaldo or Messi or what is his name, Mbappe or Neymar. They're not, those are even within soccer. But there are many people who are playing soccer at this point. Many men who are making an above average living from the soccer that they have because they set a goal that was bigger than them and they start working towards it. Gentlemen, we're going to talk this morning, a serious talk about money in the different stages of our lives. But let me tell you this session is not enough for you to begin to set the specific goals that you've put into the chat box right now. It is for you to actually commit and say, you know what, I'm going to sit in a class under coaches, just like the greatest guys who are out there in the world. And these coaches are going to help us to align ourselves so that now we're able to be fully rounded in our approach to our finances. And that's what the Centonomy 101 program is doing for you. Gentlemen, it is an investment that you're going to make now that will pay dividends over the rest of your life. And here's the thing, because I see it all the time. We say this in this room. Guys say they're going to come. And they say, oh, I'll make it. Guys have been saying it for over the last how many years? And what is happening to the value of your cash, to the value of the potential investments, is the one asset or the one resource that you cannot get back, which is time, is being lost. That's what's happening. And you can't get back your time. So this is the time. So it's not just about committing and saying, I'm coming in for the class. It's to say, I'm coming in and I'm coming in now. So that next year, when you're attending this session again, because we'll have some more other sessions which are going to be talking about different things over time, you're coming in now, not not just to glean, but rather to refine, because you have already gotten the direction that you want. Because many of these plans that you're putting down here, 4-bedroom house that will cost around 2 million on an acre of land, now you have to figure out where is that acre of land and how am I going to save up? How am I going to do it? Am I going to build? Am I going to go off plan? Am I going to buy it straight off? Am I going to take a mortgage? Now you have the direction that you need. Gentlemen, it is not about coming for sessions like this. This session will be amazing. We got a super group of gentlemen who are going to come and speak to us. And I know that's what attracted you even to come into the session the way we are, but that is insufficient. It's about the investment that you're going to make in yourself. And this is the one last thing from my rant. I apologize. I came with so much energy for today because I have to wake men up. Listen. We no longer have any excuses. We can't have any excuses. We cannot. Because we can blame everybody for whatever is going on. But guess what? Your life and your destiny is in your hands at whatever age you're at. My name is Waithaka Gatumia, and I serve here at Centonomy as CEO. But as you can tell, I am the advocate for men in this world because I want us all to be successful. And my concern is this, that ladies have really woken up. They're attending our sessions. We had an amazing Women and Money event, which you saw online a couple of weeks ago. And guys are growing. They're pushing their careers forward. They're pushing forward because they're learning and they're getting to that same place. It's making relationships difficult because you're finding the lady in the relationship is getting a lot more financially educated and is wondering what's happening with my husband. He's not catching up with what I'm doing. And the husband is hustling. Yes, you're doing the work, but it is like you're trying to be an elite boxer and you don't have a trainer. Yeah, you can have all the talent in the world, but it is that trainer who's going to get you focused and sharpened to get to where you're going to be. I'm so excited because we've got some true heroes in this room. We've got Mr. Mwenda, who's going to come and talk. He's a content creator. He's an entrepreneur. He's an all-round great guy who's going to be speaking to us about his perspective and his learning over the last couple of years. And he's going to share from his personal experiences. Later on, we're also going to have Mr. Simon Mbevi, he's an author. He's also the founder of Transform Nations. He's the one who got me really passionate about speaking to men because he's been doing it. It's one of the central things that he's doing in his life because he's saying men need to rise up and now need to realize, guess what? Nothing is going to be handed to you anymore. It's about saying, you know what? I'm going after my goals. I'm going after the things that matter to me, and I'm going to be purposeful. I'm going to be clear. And he's going to come and share from his perspective of talking to men and also being a man, his experiences along the way. Gentlemen, if you are ready, please say something in the chat box. Are you ready to receive some of the things that we're going to talk about today? If you are, type it in the chat box because I'm ready. I'm ready to go because, guys, we need to wake up. We need to get ourselves ready for this life that is ahead of us. All right? I wanted to start with something that inspired me. I hope it inspires you as well. But today I'm trying to motivate you to take action. You see, in a session like this, I cannot take you through, for example, time value of money. Let me give you an example of time value. This is, guys, come on, Stanley, come on, Leonard. Thank you, Eric. Victor, yes, we're ready. Harrison, yes, we are. I'd love to take you through a session on time value of money. It's one of my favorite classes in the Centonomy 101 program, in which now you can be able to kind of peer into the future and to set specific goals. In that class, we're able to do, it's a mathematical class, but please, this is the best math class that you're ever going to attend because the trainer gives you all the answers. We just use mathematics to foresee what is coming. So in the class, we start off by asking, hey, did you notice this? This is my personal example. Did you notice that in 1992, bread used to cost in Kenya, it used to cost 7 shillings for 500 grams. 1992. It used to cost 7 shillings for 500 grams. Today, we are paying over 60 shillings for 400 grams. How much will bread cost when I retire 20 years from now? We sit in the class and we actually calculate it. In the chat box, let's see who could guess the closest answer. What do you think a loaf of bread in Kenya is cost? I know to the people outside of Kenya, I've not left you. I'm just using the example that I know and that I can quickly get, but it functions whichever country you're in and whatever currency you're using. Come on, in the chat box, what do you think a loaf of bread will cost 20 years from now when I'm in my 60s? 100. Bob, not even close. Lena, not even close. It's 60 shillings today. How is a loaf of bread going to cost less? 54 shillings. 75, not even close. Let me show you. The guys who are getting close are those who are near 400 to 500 shillings. What does that mean for our planning purposes? But guess what? The same function which we learned about in high school about compounding, the same function is the same one that's working on your investments today. And so as inflation is compounding the price of goods and services, guess what? Your investments, if they're giving you an annual return, are doing the same thing. And so you can overcome and beat inflation over time if you simply sit down and set a strategy. And that's what this program is about. We set the strategy and give you the skills so that you can put it in place for yourself. So I want to start off with something before we get to our first speaker for today. I want us to start with just something that inspired me. Hopefully it will get you to think, guys, because no more excuses, no more excuses. Type that in the chat box. No more excuses. It's not the government's fault. It's not our parents' fault anymore. It is not the economy. It is not the globe. It is not Russia. It is for us to take responsibility. No more excuses, guys. No more excuses. Hopefully this helps you. Let me try that one more time. Had the wrong settings on. That's what happens when you get excited and you're trying to share things in a hurry. Let's go one more time. One more time.
You know,
everything you can learn, but if you don't have the attitude to move forward, if you're blaming everybody else, you're blaming whatever is going on around you, doesn't matter. So set a goal. Prepare yourself to come into this class so that now you can be able to say, you know what, I have the skill set, I have the ability, I am able to do the things that I need to do, and then go get it. And guess what? Some things are going to work, some things are not going to work. And that's an important lesson for investment, which we're going to discuss like in a few minutes. It's an important lesson for investment. There is no investor who has had an 100% winning streak. In fact, some of the greatest investors will tell you about the number of times that they've actually lost out. That's what I'm talking about here. And so when you come into the class, it's not about that suddenly you're going to become the most amazing stockbroker in the world. You understand shares to the point that you will be 100% successful. You understand real estate, you're 100% successful. No, but you have the skill set to allow you to go into it and make good choices that will result where you're going for. Through the difficulties, through the down times, that's what it's about. But gentlemen, if we're going to sit back and expect things to just be put into our laps, we're going to blame everybody else. It's not about everybody else, it's about you. In fact, here at Centonomy, our focus is on you, the individual. If you can make good decisions, good results will come over time. Will it be 100% good? No. Will it be perfect? No. But can you be successful? Yes. Are there people who are making billions in difficult economies like the way it is right now? Yes. Are there? Come on, guys. No more excuses. No more excuses. Now, someone who is not giving us any excuses, who's doing an amazing job, as I mentioned earlier, is a content creator, is an entrepreneur. He could very easily, now, did I share the wrong thing? I did. I have not shared the screen yet. There we go. He's an amazing entrepreneur, content creator. He could be giving excuses today. Eli could come and say, guess what? The YouTube algorithm goes against Africans. Our content is not shared the way it is in other places. He could say that because we have such a small population who are online in Africa, I can't be a content creator and use the internet. But guess what? He's doing it and he's setting the internet ablaze. Eli, I know you're somewhere in the room. If you don't mind, you can switch on your camera and say hi to everybody. I know you've just come back from traveling the world as well. It looks like you're traveling even at this moment. Bro, you need to slow down a little bit. I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on.
Hey, how's it going? How's it going? Yeah, context. I've had to.
It's going well. Sorry, I got
Yeah.
excited.
It's okay. I was fired up from your talk. I was really, really fired up. Yeah, for context, I've had to come into the car because there's construction work going on in my apartment, so it was a bit loud. So I've had to come down here. It's like a just so no excuses, I guess. Yeah.
Come on, share with us your lessons, bro.
Excellent. Let's hope that's good. Yeah. So if anyone that doesn't know, yes, my name is Eli Mwenda. I am a digital content creator. I'm really, really excited to have this chat. One of the things I do online is I have a podcast called Man Talk, which is centered all around having conversations that can benefit men. So the fact that I've been invited to have this chat with you today is really, really exciting. So I'm 30 years old. I do content full time. Live in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm guessing quite a lot of us are from here. And so today with this chat, I was given the section of talking about money in my 20s. So I've just turned 30 a few months ago. And I feel like I've had a very reflective, especially few months. So this has come at a very good time. Thank you, Miles. Thanks for watching. So the way I want to approach my 20s and my segment, I'm guessing I can just kick off now, Waithaka. Just confirm. I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to chip in before I go.
No, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Okay, good stuff. Yeah, so the way I wanted to approach this is number one with telling a few stories, because I feel like, especially as men, when it comes to topics such as money, it can be a very sensitive one. And I feel like when one person shares their mistakes, it can let somebody else feel like, oh, I've done the same thing, but there is an option to come out better. So that my idea is sharing the flaws that I've gone through and then sharing the lessons that I've learned from. So I know there's some guys here that are much older than me with way more life experiences. So I know it's going to be a bit of a blast from the past when I talk about our 20s, but I hope that there's also some young guys here that this can really help. Like I said, I've only got 30 years of experience under my belt. So let me just take a note of the time now. Okay, excellent, 44. So yeah, like I said, I'm 30 years old, and when I was doing my retrospect as to how my 20s were, I came across an article that made it make sense. So I've always seen online, bit of context as well. My background is in public health, so I'm always curious about the human body and how that affects like life decisions and the vehicle that's taking on the journey. So when I've looked back at some of the decisions I made in my 20s, I wanted to find out why. Everything seems much clearer now than what it was when I was younger. And I've always seen this phrase that people have said that your brain actually finally forms when you get to 25. Like, is that its now final state in terms of growing, and I believe it becomes a sort of firmer entity of your body, right? So basically the studies that I've looked at said that research found that the teen's brain works very differently to an adult's brain, because an adult will use their prefrontal cortex, which is a more rational part. I'm just looking at my notes here, which is a more rational part of the brain when it comes to making judgment, decisions, and taking into account long-term consequences. However, when you're a teen and when you're under 25, you process information with a part of your brain called the amygdala, which is the more emotional part. Now, when I looked at that study and I looked at how I approached money back when I was younger, it made so much sense because there was a bit of a blur in terms of why I was doing the things I was doing, because I thought I had the whole picture. Now, going on to the other end of 25, I realized that there was way more structure, way more rationale purely because I'd also made more mistakes. So I'm going to be sharing some of them as we go through that. So it's not to say that guys under 25 have no hope. It's a good thing that you're probably doing this younger and having these conversations now, sort of based on the research. So I'm going to split it into 5 sections. I'm going to talk about experiencing my firsts, because I feel like the decade of your 20s is when you're discovering. I think Waithaka said a video on Instagram, which was so true. When he was putting them into segments, he said that 20 is a discovering decade, and that was definitely the case for myself. So I'll be sharing that, which meant that there was a lot of firsts. Then I'll be sharing the mistakes, how I paid for those mistakes, and how I learned to avoid them in the future. And then how I've taken all of those lessons to now planning my next decade that I've just entered into. So I'll offer more context as well. So I grew up in the UK. I moved to Kenya 4 years ago. So a lot of these stories are going to be in reference to how and where I grew up. But I think there's some common threads I can translate to anywhere. And I'm sure there's guys that are listening from all over the world, even afterwards. So I believe for a lot of people, you were a dependent prior to sort of making your own income. So my first memory of having money as myself, as Eli, was obviously from my first job, because I feel like pocket money doesn't really count for that. So I remember that my very first paycheck, I used to work at a bakery. We were literally just flipping bread and putting them in the oven for customers. And I remember my very first paycheck, the only thing I wanted to do was to buy a certain cap that I'd always wanted. And at that time in my life, the number one thing was, okay, money equals product. Because I feel like what happens to a lot of us is when we are in school, when we're going for those formative years, you're taught about everything around the world, but they're kind of building you to be a employee or to work a certain field, but they don't teach you what to do when you get your first bit of money. So that was the case for me. As much as I'd had conversations with loved ones, when it came, I didn't have that kind of structure. So yes, first paycheck was all about image. And that carried on even into my early 20s. The next time I started to get income, my first thing was I need to buy a car. So I literally would use so we used to have student loan at that time. My first income coming from student loan and from my job was I needed a car for image. And this all makes sense later as to why the rationale came. It was all about image. It was about what other people perceived me as when it came to success. So that was my very first interaction with money. It was all about sort of shielding myself with image. And it kind of plays into the emotional part that I referenced earlier in terms of the studies. I realized that when I was under 25, it was how am I feeling? Money was all about how am I feeling, how am I making other people feel about myself. So then kind of the next first that I had, obviously the car, the bakery. The next first that I had in my 20s was going and actually now living as an individual and having a relationship with money that meant that there is an actual bill at the end of the month to have a roof over your head. I'm sure a lot of guys, when they've got to their mid-20s, have sort of felt that as well. That was my next first. Then the other first, obviously in my 20s, was first love, first relationships. So I think this will be where I'll tell the first story. So for context, I used to date a girl that was about 40 minutes away. And again, to do with the rationale and the planning of how I'm going to use my money. At that time in my life, I was trying to portray an image, and I'm really going to encourage a lot of guys, especially under their 20s, to try and break out of this as soon as possible. As much as there's one side where you want to put your best foot forward, you want people to appreciate you for the best version of yourself. There's also a dishonesty that sometimes comes certainly for me when I was younger in my 20s, where even when it came to the person that I dated, I wanted them to think of me in a certain way, which meant stretching myself further, which meant that now my relationship with money was all to do with keeping up an appearance or keeping up a persona or a bravado as a man. And I really encourage guys to have honest conversations with themselves so that this doesn't now affect you financially. Perfect example. I've mentioned I had bought the car at this point in my life. I used to have to travel to go and see this girlfriend of mine, and then try to keep up with the appearance of going for dates. Never really, always saying that it's okay, I can afford this, and then feeling the strain later. To the point, this is one that we always laugh about in my family. To the point that at one point, after dropping her home and going back to where I was I had stretched myself so thin I didn't actually have the petrol to travel back. So at some points I was coasting down the hill, so I didn't have to put any fuel on the accelerator. That's a perfect example for me where, because I was keeping this up, I was now feeling the pinch when it's those solitude moments on my own. So the piece of advice that, especially for guys under 25, and it sometimes happens even later in your life, is making sure that you're not using money as a personality. You're not sort of using money as things to make people think of you in a certain way. Having a very honest conversation and being okay with saying that this is how far I can stretch, because I felt that even in my love life, I felt that now socially I had to sort of keep a certain thing up. But as soon as you have honest relationships with yourself and you can start saying, I can't afford this, I think for men, it's a very tough line to say sometimes to peers, to loved ones, that I can't afford this. Yes, you've all been there. Yes. Being able to say that definitely relieves the burden and helps you have more clarity as to your situation. Because I feel like when you're lying to people on the outside, you're also lying to yourself as to where you can stretch financially. So even in the dating world, I really encourage guys to have a very if pass the path to have a very honest conversation as to what are your limits, because it will really damage you later on. Now, a perfect example as to how this even damaged me on the other end. So on one side, I'm pretending I can afford these things. On the other side, it's my next first is now having bills. And sort of having that thing where your parents have said you're at a certain age, you have to now go and look after your own bills. So like everybody, actually, no, I think in Kenya with Safaricom, I'm just seeing the comments. With Kenya and Safaricom, I believe there's not many people that go on contract. But when I was growing up, in the UK, when you had your first like phone, your first line, you had to go on contract and make certain payments every month. Because I know here there's like pay as you go, which is a bit nicer. So entering that first contract where they start to check your credit score. Now, at that time in my life, I did not know what a credit score is. And I was just excited to sign off, get a phone every year, get a certain amount of data, etc. But entering these kind of agreements that are now going to affect my records without having any context as to can I afford this for an extended period of time. So because I was now putting this persona of yes, I can date in this kind of circle. Yes, I can wear these sort of clothes. When it came to my practical things that are going to affect me for a long period of time, like entering a contract that is to do with my finances, I found that I was entering deals now with my phone contractor that I actually could not afford. Again, stretching myself thin because I'm using money elsewhere. So what this actually meant, my very first stain on my credit record was because I took a financial product, which was a phone contract, that meant that I was falling behind. And when I fell behind, I kind of went into default. And I think it's very important to just be honest about these kind of things, because there might be guys here that have been in a maybe similar situation, or maybe guys that are heading to that situation. When you hear somebody else say that I did the exact same thing, please be cautious. I think that's the first step to kind of growing as a collective. So when that happened, I also had the idea that, you know, when these sort of bills are coming and you're getting these letters saying you need to pay this certain amount, because I didn't have it, I kind of put it off and just said I'll deal with that when I get the money, rather than making small changes to kind of clear those bad debts. There's bad and good debts. That's a whole conversation for a Centonomy class, but this in my case was definitely a bad debt, because now it was accruing fees, accruing interest. So I was now spending money over here to maintain this lifestyle, and now getting bills piling up, interest piling up. And when the figure got bigger, I didn't want to deal with it because I thought it was way too high. What that meant is my very first stain on my credit record meant that about 6 years later, when I wanted to enter the property ladder back home, this had taken my score way down. Now it's only after I started realizing that this is actually going to be a problem that I started dealing with it. But when I didn't know it was a problem, I just kind of left it as to, you know, this is a phone bill, I don't really care about it. So one of the things I did then, I obviously wasn't familiar with Centonomy at the time, was I went on like you're in that phase now. I went on a self-development journey where I just dived straight into YouTube to just find out, like, what do bills mean? What does it mean when this word comes up? What does it mean when it means default? What is a credit score? And then once I kind of geared myself with the information, I was able to take action because I knew like the gravity of it, to start sort of slowly clearing it. So this is a perfect reason why I feel like having the knowledge and the education when you're going into these kind of things is key. Because if I had known the gravity of it before, if I had taken those steps to develop myself before, if I was in classes like this, then I wouldn't have even taken that deal, because I could have forecast that my budget every month can't afford it. So that was the next first, which was having bills. So in terms of numbers, I won't go specifically, but I actually ended up paying 10 times what the actual bill was for that fee, for that first debt that I didn't clear, 10 times the amount, which meant that now my first jobs, a bunch of my salary was literally going to clearing debts from bad decisions. So I really urge guys, the first piece of advice is when going into anything that's to do with your credit score, anything that's to do with like a monthly payment, be very clear as to if you can actually afford it and know what the consequences are going into it. So for me, after about 3 years, I managed to finally clear something that, you know, if I was smarter, I would have just cleared off the bat before it accrued the interest. So I really urge guys, don't maintain an image while maintain the image for other people while your personal finances are taking a hit, and gear yourself with the knowledge to kind of go through that. Now, the next thing that I did in terms of my 20s, and I think this even happens to guys older than me when having conversations with them, is when it came to saving, it's something that some people always said it's a good idea to save. Now, mid 20s, when I started when I was taking on these self-development courses, watching videos, etc., I was saving, but I didn't have a purpose as to why I was saving. So I don't know if guys have been in a similar situation, but what that meant for me is I would build up a certain amount of money, um, and then there would always be a good excuse for it to be used. Because if I didn't have a set goal as to why I'm saving this certain amount of money from my salary each month, then if an emergency happened, or even like a loved one says, oh, I need this amount, because you know you've got it and it's not allocated to something, I find myself just either you can give it to somebody, or you feel like, oh, I need to treat myself, and you use some of your savings. That's one of the biggest mistakes I made. So my savings used to fluctuate, where I would save for no reason, spend it all and start at scratch again, then go up again, save again, and then sort of use it all. So my next piece of advice, especially when you're in your 20s, when it comes to saving, it's a very nice idea. It's a very amazing idea, but it needs to have some sort of purpose. Otherwise, it won't feel like it's got something like a weight behind it. So please, when it comes to saving, have a goal, have an intention as to why you're doing it. Now, the third, probably the fourth piece of advice, which comes from my lesson, is I think as men generally, we have, and especially some of the narratives we see online or talk to people, is about motivation, or saying that, you know, I'm going to get this. While that's amazing, when it impacts your financial life, it can actually be a negative, and I'll explain why. One of the worst things that I did in my 20s was counting my chickens before they hatched and spending money that hadn't actually come in yet on things that I thought I can now pay off when the money comes. Perfect example, working in some of my first jobs then, or working in the gig economy now, sometimes payments, etc., it can be delayed, and you've assumed that you're going to either get this deal, especially when you're an entrepreneur. This is when I really saw it prevalently. When you're an entrepreneur and you think you're going to get this, and you start spending because you're going to reimburse yourself later, that's something that I really found damaged me if something now goes wrong. And primarily that basically meant that my cash flow as a young man ended up being poor. So counting your chickens, as much as it's good to be motivated and saying that, yes, I'm going to achieve this, please do not spend money prior to actually coming in, prior to it being a very firm thing that is signed off. Because yes, I think the motivation as a guy and the energy of saying that I'm going to achieve this can actually damage you if you're not doing it in a practical way. So that was my next thing, especially for entrepreneurs out there, because there's a lot of times where things like they're going to be signed off and you start getting excited. Please pause, wait this few weeks to actually be signed off, let the deposit come in before you start spending the money. So those were some of the kind of mistakes that I made when I was in my 20s. And one of at the moment I'm reading the book, and I really wanted to share this with you. One of the reasons that I think men's mindset and money is a big topic is because a lot of your decision with money comes down to attitude and comes down to the relationship with yourself. There's a really, really incredible book called The Mountain Is You that I'm reading at the moment, and it really okay, sorry, something just happened on the screen. There's a really interesting book called The Mountain Is You, and one of the key things is it talks about self-sabotage behavior, and the way this links into finance is the main thing they talk about is your behaviors sometimes they can keep on going because you've not addressed the core root of it. Earlier in the discussion, I mentioned how I was doing things to please other people. And for me, that was literally because I hadn't had an honest conversation with myself as to why I needed a certain thing, why I needed people to think that I can afford this, why did I need to drive a certain car, why did I need to go to certain places and spend certain amounts of money. So as much as you're taking a financial journey, especially when the book is called The Mountain Is You. So it talks about self-sabotage behavior. And so some of the self-sabotage behavior that I found when I was in my early 20s was because I hadn't taken a journey with myself. The Mountain Is You is the name of the book. I hadn't taken a journey with myself, which meant that my behaviors were not actually benefiting me. They were doing it for other people. Once I sort of had that conversation with myself, I was able to now say I can't afford certain things. I was able to now say I'm not going to go to certain places because I was just being honest. I was just being honest with the decisions I'm making, and I was being honest with my behaviors. So I feel like you can have the best intentions to be more equipped when it comes to your finances, but the decisions are going to be based on the relationship with yourself. So taking that journey with yourself really helps when it comes to making financial decisions. Now, in terms of planning in going into the future and being a 30-year-old guy, the phase of your life when you're in your 20s, 25s is definitely discovering yourself. And I feel like when you come to the tail end of that, it's now looking forward as to what have I done in this phase, or what am I going to do to help me now when I have dependents. Obviously, some guys get married much earlier. When I have dependents, how am I setting my structures and my life up now so that they can benefit from the decisions that I'm making? And yes, we're in a Centonomy class, so it will look very obvious that I'm saying that we should be having these kind of conversations, but genuinely, going to places to do with self-development, even when it comes to finances like Centonomy, for me, kind of it was like a magnifying glass as to how my life looks at the moment. A perfect example is in Centonomy 101. One of the first things they talk about is every day just tracking your expenses and literally writing down to the penny what you're spending. When I've started doing that, I started realizing what my potential was if I'm putting smaller increments of money aside with a purpose that can now benefit me later. So I'm just reading the comments that can benefit me later. So one of the big lessons I took from my 20s is I always used to think that it had to be a big amount, or it had to be a big investment, or it had to be a big decision to make me have positive outcomes when it comes to my finances. But one of the things I've realized coming to the tail end, going to Centonomy 101 and just having conversation with people that are in different phases of their lives, is realizing that if you wait for the big check to invest in somewhere, you're never going to do that. But putting like 100 shillings, putting like 50 bob, or even writing down what that looks like if you add it over a long period of time, is now helping me set myself up for what I want in the future. And there's something Waithaka said at the very beginning, which was oh yeah, that's the correct author. Sorry, I can't type while I'm doing this. One of the things that Waithaka said at the beginning, which was really key, was being really precise with even what you want your future to look like. And that's something that I sort of done in the beginning of every year, setting vision boards. But I'd never done it specifically financially. I'll just say some of the comments I was seeing at the beginning of the class, just saying, oh, I want to live here, I want to do this, I want more holidays. But when I started actually applying that and saying, no, I want this specific holiday, or I want this specific area to live in, or I want this specific amount of rent to pay each month, and then working backwards to kind of track that and say that, okay, that means I need to make this small incremental change for this long period of time. That's one of the key things that I've sort of taken. And again, having that kind of really realistic expectation as to what your life wants to look like, and having really precise goals and precise figures has helped me now map out a plan as to how I want the next phase of my life to be. Because I feel like sometimes you can be chasing your tail in your 20s because you're not actually sure of what you want. So that's been one of my key takeaways, is that it's all about small incremental changes. It's all about small incremental places where you're putting your money, rather than waiting for a big amount to put aside and then it's gonna give dividends later. That's one of my key things that I've sort of taken away from taking this financial journey with Centonomy as well. So there's a phrase that I'm sure a lot of our fathers have said, where it says, if you take care of the pennies, then the pounds will take care of itself. That's basically summarized that section and that learning. So if you wanted like a little thing to keep remembering, is just take care of the pennies, or take care of the shillings, and the shillings will take care of themselves, basically. Now, one of the sorry, let me just go on here. Yeah, one of the things as well, when it came to my finances that I've kind of applied, and this would be my final point, is also just being kind when it comes to mistakes. A lot of the time you realize that when it comes to financial goals, sometimes you might hit them later, sometimes you might make mistakes, and you feel like sometimes it's futile if you keep not sort of making progress. So the last kind of word of encouragement that I would give people, is that even when you're kind of going through this years of your 20s, when you're kind of going through these phases where you're learning, you have to, everyone always uses this example when it comes to a butterfly in a cocoon, right? I feel like sometimes things have to break, and sometimes you have to learn lessons from making mistakes. But while you're sort of going through that process, while you're making those mistakes, just know that even when it comes to putting your money in wrong places, when it comes to sometimes spending money that you shouldn't have done, as long as you're kind to yourself, you can actually address it. But if you just kind of carry on being self-sabotaging because you've done something wrong when it comes to your financial goals, you're never going to kind of make progress. So I just encourage you that when you are making financial decisions, when you are making financial mistakes, as long as you're kind to yourself. And I know that there's a lot of pressure from the outside society for men to be perfect, especially when it comes to things like money. When you do make the mistakes, just be kind to yourself, and just know that, especially when you're in your 20s, it's a learning process. There is plenty of time for those mistakes, and it's a very good idea to make those mistakes when you don't have the dependence. That would be my, and then so when you're making mistakes later, you learn from them when it's just you, rather than learning from them when there's a lot of people that are sort of depending on you. So that's my kind of final lesson that I learned in my 20s. I'm really, really happy to have shared these few minutes with me. I hope there's been some sort of gem. Like I said, I'm only 30 years old. I'm still on that journey. And I'm actually taking it with Centonomy when it comes to the one-on-one class. But yeah, gents, that's been my sort of last decade. That's been my kind of lessons. And I hope you'll take it on board. And I really, really wish you all the best. And I'm really glad that I'm just looking at the numbers, that there's so many people in here that are very curious as to how they can better themselves financially. So thank you guys for your time. It's very valuable. So thanks for sharing with me. Thank you, Waithaka and Centonomy, for having me on this talk. And good luck with your financial goals. Cheers.
Eli, I mean, everyone, you can see the messages coming in. Don't disappear, Eli. Don't disappear. I wanted to finish up with you before you go. Look, guys, are happy with the honesty. Thank you for sharing real life issues, because with the real life, when you apply the knowledge that you actually have now, when you apply the things that you're learning, the greater success is going to come. And just like the video that we watched earlier on, it's not that you're not going to get hit. It's not that there's, hey, life is we keep joking about this in the entrepreneurship program at Centonomy, because we say business is a full contact sport. But then we're saying life is truly a full contact extreme sport. That's what it is. And you're going to get hit, but it's about getting up again. And I really liked the way that you shared so honestly about the idea of saving without purpose. Like, save now with a goal. And even if that goal, I loved it, the goal that you said, which is I want to go on a holiday, because people always think saving is simply just for a house at one point in future that you don't know. And I think that whole YOLO kind of thing creeps in there, because there are things you can't achieve, right? And then spending money and you don't have, that's brilliant. Like there's an expectation that something's going to come through. And then the idea of the class being a magnifying glass. And that's what it tends to be. Like if you've ever gone to the gym and you have a personal trainer and they look at you, but you see, they're looking at you not the way you look at yourself. They're like, they see everything that is wrong and they're able to help you. That's amazing. That's what it is. Small amounts matter. I took those notes down. Well done. And then be kind to yourself. I like that, because look, you're not perfect, but imagine you're getting better. And I think that's a great attitude to be able to have even as you go along the way. Eli, there was a question for you that came up earlier. And I know it's controversial. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I think it's necessary to address. Somebody asked earlier on, Eli, do you think that your success has come to you simply because you grew up in a Western country?
So I think, if I'm assuming I'm hoping the person has context as to what I do. So I think I have a lot of these similar questions saying, like, do you think this has worked out because of your background? Now, I always say that there is definitely an element of privilege. 100% is an element of privilege. And I've always said that I define privilege as the opportunity to fail. So the only thing that I've had, I think, is definitely the opportunity to fail. However, there's no replacement for actually doing the work. There's no replacement for actually spending the time on a craft. So as much as, especially what I do being public online, it can look like everything kind of just happens. I'm doing at the moment, as much as there's been maybe that privilege, I've had to still take it by the horns, still spend like 6 years honing my craft when it comes to content to be able to actually make revenue from it. So yeah, I've said that I've definitely had the opportunity to fail. That's the only thing that I would sort of hold my hands up. But yes, the failing has happened, but it's still taken the time. It's been an element for sure. Yeah.
Great. You have your hands in a couple of different things. Content, I think, is the main thing at the moment. What else are you involved in? That's a question that came up here.
Okay, yeah. So prior to I went full time into content in January. So at the moment, my literal day to day is I make content for brands online. I also have a podcast called Man Talk, which makes revenue. So it's a weekly podcast. We talk about men's issues, etc. And then I have an event called the Insta Market, where we help small businesses and we host events each month. So those are the main three things. Prior to that, I was working and in the family company where we would have a dealerships where we're selling motorbikes, Bajaj, the borders. So we had that, but I completely stepped away end of last year. So right now my sole income is from making content for brands and the podcast. So that's literally what I do at the moment. Yeah.
So how do you manage? One last question, if you don't mind. Guys are here to talk to you and hear your story. So that's why I'm asking. How do you manage being in business and maybe the inconsistency of income over that period of time?
That is the biggest peril of this industry. It's very tough. That's why the counting chickens has been a massive lesson, because a lot of the time when you work in this industry, it's 90 days invoices, it's 60 days invoices, and these are business days, not even just days. So when that happens, what I've basically learned to do is writing down what my expenses will be for a certain amount of time. And when a certain amount of money comes in, maybe in windfall, for definition, windfall means when there's a big amount, paying off a lot of the things that I need until I know my next check comes. So if I get a windfall of money from a few clients that there was 9-day payments, it's paying rent 2-3 months in advance so that I don't have that kind of stress, because it can be very, very unpredictable and there can be issues. So that's how I kind of combat that. Also, one of the things I did as well is I made sure I diversified my income. So as much as there's content, there's also the podcast. So the podcast might pay earlier, and then the market might pay earlier. So you're not always relying on one certain check and then having several clients. So essentially, it was just managing risk and spreading the risk rather than having one sole person. That's how I've managed, because cash flow can be an issue when it comes to content.
Great. So where can we find your podcast? We'd love to.
It's on all platforms. It's on YouTube, it's on Instagram, TikTok. It's just mantalk.ke. So I host it with my good friend Oscar. So we have weekly episodes that go out on Thursdays, and then we go live every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Kenyan time, and we just have honest discussions. So mantalk.ke on all platforms, and myself is just Eli Mwenda, like it's written here, I believe. MEMWNDA on all platforms as well. That's why I do lifestyle content.
Bro, you've been amazing. You should see the comments if you can. Stick around and maybe engage a little bit with some of the guys who've been chatting with you. It would be amazing. Guys, let's put our hands together for Eli virtually as we go through, for being honest and sharing life as it is, and just understanding that it doesn't matter what level you're coming in at, you still have to work, because this life is not easy. It's not, but it's for guys like us who are stepping up and saying, guess what? We have goals, we have ambitions that we want to achieve, and we're going for them no matter what. And get hit, come back again, and try again as we go forward. Excellent. Thank you so much, Eli. God bless as you go. Look at that.
Thank you
Love the conversation so much.
Cheers.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
No worries. So a couple of thoughts from my perspective as well. I just wanted to share what I've been through, and also some of the things that we will be discussing, especially in our 30s and 40s. That's why I'm 41 at the moment, so I'm just like a decade ahead of Eli. So we have some space between us to discuss some of those things. I want to share stories from different stages in my life, if you don't mind, even as we go through. So money in the different seasons of life. And I want, if you have, as I said, if you have a notebook and pen next to you, it's so useful, because when you write down a couple of these things, I take notes even from the speakers that I invite for these sessions, because it helps us to fully kind of engage with the material that you're dealing with at the moment, right? So first of all, here's some ideas that we can hopefully use and build on as we go forward. Number one, throw out the rule book. As I share these points, please understand, in this world, there are those people who have found their position and found great success in their, as a 10-year-old or as a 5-year-old. We were having this discussion, Eli, I know you're in the content space, but there's this kid in the US who reviews toys, and he was a multi-millionaire by the time he was 10 years old, all right? So how do you begin to have a discussion with him about personal finance necessarily in the same context that we're having right now? They're different contexts, right? So throw out the rule book. So I want us to understand this. Number one, we're all different. We come from different perspectives. And when I'm speaking, especially to a group of Africans, majority of us in this room are Africans. And if you're not an African, you're still welcome. It's just that we recognize majority of those who I'm speaking to. I have to give context to it. Majority of us, I know there are many Africans who are struggling even to put food on the table. And I have to say this, to those who are doing that, we understand, no, that's a wrong word to use. We're not saying this to say that you have no hope or that you have no future that is in front of you, no. And some of the ideas and concepts that are being shared here, maybe they look further than where you are. But in this very context that we're in, even you have opportunity. I was having a conversation with one of my friends, a gentleman called Johnson Mwakazi. I don't know if you know Johnson Mwakazi. He's the voice of Citizen TV here in Kenya. And Johnson, we met many years ago before anyone knew him. We met because both of us are thespians and we love to be on stage. And we met in an environment which you could not believe. At that time, Johnson didn't own a suit. At that time, Johnson probably had two outfits that he could wear, one that he could come up and one that he could come out of his home with, and the one that he stays at home with. Johnson grew up in absolute poverty in Kibera. But Johnson's story inspired me because even while he was living in Kibera, he said, okay, I have a good voice. I think people had mentioned to him that he has a pretty nice voice, a deep voice. That's why he does voiceovers and things like that. But Johnson in Kibera, which is one of the biggest slums here in Africa, sat down and would listen to the radio and get any kind of recordings that he could get to improve his speech, to improve his pronunciation, especially of English. And so when he came into that world, and we did some work with Johnson early in his career, he did such an amazing job in one of the jobs that we're doing. And another friend of mine, Mr. Jimmy Gathu, was at that event, and he was like, Waithaka, this guy you're working with, can you give me his number? And I shared it with him. And that's where his career in the media started off, because he was so excellent at something that it opened doors for him that could never have been opened before. So I'm not glossing over the fact that there are those who live in abject poverty and in difficult places. But I hazard a guess that if you're able to afford the airtime to be attending this session or watching it on YouTube, or wherever it is that you're watching this, then you have some extra income that you know that you have some income or some cash flow that could allow that you are able to use to view things like this, and you're not worried about necessarily eating today. So please understand, I'm not glossing over that. I want to say this though, that if you're listening to this, the likelihood is you're watching it on your phone or you're watching it on a laptop. It means that you have some extra income over and above the basics. And therefore, we don't have any excuses, just like we started off at this session. So it's not whether it's an issue of you started in privilege, it's that you have opportunity at whatever level that you are. So just recognize that we're all different. So your history is different. Your aptitude is different. Your environment is different. So we cannot please expect everyone to be functioning the same as everybody else. Your resources are different. However, please understand that that means that we are all unique. That means that you're all unique, and it's your superpower. No one else can do what you do. In whichever environment you find yourself in, you can stand out. In whatever environment you come into, you can be the only one who is functioning at a high level. And it's a choice that you make. So please, you can look at it and say, oh man, I don't know whether I can be able to do this or not. Or you can say, guess what? I am made in a unique way. I honestly believe God made us, each one of us, unique in such a way that we are valuable. And we talk about this in the class where you have to recognize this. Listen to what I'm saying. Value is found in uniqueness. The reason that people dig 3 kilometers down into the ground in South Africa is because they are looking for gold, which is hard to find. If gold was just found everywhere, then we'd not be bothered. It's like aluminum. You can just get it from anywhere in the world. That's why it's not, and there's a vast amount of it. But because gold is hard to find, it is unique. Therefore, it brings about a great return. And because you are unique, you can bring a great return. There's no one else who's like you. So let me share a couple of ideas. Even in short, I know Eli did a great job on the 20s, but I just wanted to highlight some of the perspectives when it comes to your personal finance. I want you to recognize this. In your 20s, it's a season of exploration. And what does that mean? Go out and try. There's a sense in which some of us, especially here in Africa, we say there are no jobs available, there's no space. Have you gone and offered yourself for free? So I'll give you my personal experience. My first job, I actually did for 2 months unpaid. And by the way, I was doing so with a university degree. There were others in the place who were doing internships. They had not even finished their degree, but I was working in an organization for free, and I had completed my university degree. But because I wanted to open that door, what the internship allowed me to do was to get in the door. I came and said, you know what? No problem, I'll work. And then you'll see the result of what I'm going to do. Guys, I joined that organization as an unpaid intern. After 2 months, they started paying me, and in 3 years, I was the head of the department. Now, I'm not saying this because apparently I'm better than everybody else. No, I'm not trying to show this is the grace of God in my life, that he opened up that door for me. But when he gives you that opportunity, when the door opens, you'd better be the best that you possibly can be. And some of the best advice that I got from my boss at that time was, he said, Waithaka, this is a small organization. Don't just do what you're told to do. Get involved. And I did it. So as you explore, whatever environment that you're in, whether it's a volunteer position in a community center, in a church, at a workplace, whatever it is within your 20s, don't just do what you're told to do. Go over and above. Be helpful. Be involved. Try things that you've never tried before, because the exploration will expand your mind to see. You're trying to see what is the thing that if I do, everyone, steps back and says, this person is excellent. Okay? So you want to open up that space for yourself in your 20s, explore, try different things, do more than one internship at a time, because you also have the energy to do so. All right? So spread yourself so that you're able to explore and grow. As far as income is concerned, to those in their 20s, let's speak about that real quick. And that's what Eli was trying to define here. One of the primary concerns is generating income, generating cash flow. So you want to figure out as many different ways to generate cash. You get that job like that. That's what I did. That was my experience. I got the job and I said, you know what? I'm going to blow their socks off. These guys will not want to let me go. And even if they started paying me a small, just a small salary at the beginning, I can't imagine. I was earning a university degree. And I came out of my university and I joined this organization. I was being paid 18,000 gross, 18,000 shillings gross. All right. So you can imagine what the net amount was. Yeah. That's why I thank God for my wife, because at that time she had a better job than me. We are not married yet. We were just friends, and she had a car. So we used to carpool. And I think that's where our friendship grew. So yes, have good friends at times like that. Guys, this is a time of exploration. So go out and try. But when I say try, I don't just mean dabble. If you get into it, do your very best and see what's going to come out of that. All right. So in your 20s, Also, it's a season in which you want to think about how to start controlling your money. The example that Eli gave, if you have the methods to control managing your pennies, and the pounds will take care of themselves, managing your cents and the shillings will take care of themselves. If you have those controls, then even as because it's going to happen, you're a purposeful person. When you get that better job or that opportunity for your business comes in and cash flow comes in, if you have control, then you're in order. But how many people do we know? I mean, I just think about guys like Allen Iverson, who was one of the best basketball players in the world, was earning hundreds of millions of shillings and went broke. Because even if the money was coming in, didn't matter. And even Mike Tyson, that I told you, Mike Tyson, I was watching that documentary about him, hundreds of millions of dollars, and then you go broke because you didn't have the skill set to manage it. So when you have a little, manage it well, so that when a lot comes in, you're not shocked by the money that's coming in. So something to think about even in your 20s. And the last one that I want to say in your 20s is to start in saving and investing now. So even with the small amounts, don't say that there's a season that I'm going to get into that's going to get us to the point that I'm starting to save and invest. No, no, no. And it's not about the amount. It's the consistency and the goal setting and the planning that makes the difference. Because it becomes a habit, all right? It becomes second nature that your saving and investing plan towards specific goals starts now, and it doesn't change with who you are. The goals may change as you go along, but you already have the habit in place. So it's not a time to waste and to say, I am going to get to it at some point, and I'm going to move through this at some point. No, no, no. So in your 20s is a time, as I said, for exploration, but you're going to start off and just say, hey, look, I'm generating income. Find whatever way it is. Do something. Do not just sit at home and do nothing. I've seen some young guys here in our estate who are finding income, and they're saying, look, there are hundreds of houses within this estate that we're in. How many of them require a car wash every so often? If I offered to wash your car every morning, that's an income. Even if I'm in college, I can be earning an income. Who told you can't be earning an income? Especially here in Africa, we have every excuse, oh, there are no jobs. Who said there are no jobs? You just didn't create them. How many people would like you to cut their fences or to do something that would be able to assist them? Can you do what is it called? Tuition for children who are in school. What is stopping you from generating income? Real quick, controlling your money, and lastly, start saving and investing now. As we get into our 30s, now it begins to shift, and I need us to think slightly different. Guys, the 30s, write it down, is about establishment. The money in your 30s is about establishment. Write it down. In this season, it is about excellence and mastery. Once you try all these various things, it's about excellence and mastery. Once you're getting into your 30s, you can hear what Eli has just said. I mean, we didn't plan this, by the way. We talked about sharing our stories, but listen to what I'm saying. I didn't discuss it with him. It's come out of the discussions that we're going on right now. He just said, I left the family business. I'm doing my own. Why? Because I now need to execute with excellence and with mastery. I have to stand out. Doesn't matter what age group or what space that you're in. So I'll give you my personal example. Same thing, I was in business as well. And the same mistakes that Eli was talking about. I had just done one of my biggest deals. I managed to sell, I was in a production company. It was a production company. I managed to sell our program to just hold on a second. I was trying to, I had sold my series to a local distributor. So my program was actually being aired across Africa now. Well, at least East Africa and East and Southern Africa. And they paid me in dollars. I took that money, just like Eli said, and I spent it before I knew what was going on. And because I didn't have, again, this is the problem. I will execute the project, but I didn't have business skills and had not invested in the business skills. I had invested in the skill set of production, but I had not invested in the business skills. And so even as I was gaining growth in my production skills, my business skills were letting them down, and I struggled for a period of time. By this moment, I had gotten married. I think we had just had, We're just about to have our first kid. And I mean, like, we were thinking about getting into this same space. And I was like, I can't mess around anymore. So I said, let me look for work and then I'll figure out as we go forward. And the opportunity came for me to do some work at Centonomy. But one of the goals that I had was, if I join Centonomy, I'm going to work to be the best trainer Centonomy has ever had. And that came from a conversation with my brother. Gentlemen, please, have mentors around you. Have guys who are going to call you out and challenge you to do better than you've done before. And I thank God for my brother, because he said, okay, so you've changed. Now you're not doing production work anymore. You're going to be a trainer. So how are you going to set yourself apart? How are you going to be the best? And that challenge got me. And when I got into Centonomy, ask the team here at Centonomy, any job that came for training, I put my hand up. Not just jobs for training, but any job that came up as far as MC work or any kind of speaking work, because guess what? You get better. You achieve excellence and mastery through practice. In your workplace, all the projects that are coming up, all the opportunities that are coming up, are you putting your hand up and setting yourself apart? Because that opened the door for me. Again, I started at Centonomy as a part-time trainer. But while I was a part-time trainer, I did trainings for Centonomy for free before I became an employee there. I did MC gigs at Centonomy for free before they even employed me. This is what I'm talking about. So get out into that same space. And when you get an opportunity, blow their socks off. So now as I got into this space, I started saying, you know what, I'm going to be the best that I possibly can. And by the grace of God, he opened up doors for me that you can't imagine. I joined a part-time trainer. A couple of years later, I joined as the head of training now at Centonomy and general manager, and now I'm the CEO of the company. Guys, this is a season of mastery. You have to now say, guess what? I've tried everything. I've explored in my 20s, but now I'm going to get into a space in which I'm aiming to be the person that is going to set me apart. That's going to be the thing that sets me apart from everybody else. This is also a season to establish your team. There's a team that is around you. In my case, in my 30s, my best teammate was my wife, who I met, and I selected her very rigorously because it meant that this is a person who's going to be your teammate throughout life. If you're in business and you're starting to think about bringing on board partners, be rigorous with it, because guess what? This is a season in which you want that teamwork to set you forward and to get you along that way that you're going to be able to grow and succeed in the life that you want. This is what I'm aiming for. The other one, establishment, is work harder than anyone else. Work harder than anyone else. Put in the effort that nobody else is going to do. And doesn't matter your background. Come on, let's do a short experiment. Guys, in the chat box, I want you to name men that you respect, that you look up to, that you've always wanted to be like. I want you to put their name on in the chat box. And I'm going to show you something out of all those names that come up from the ones that we know. I love this. Africans are naming Africans. Name all these people. The likelihood is you probably could not keep up with them with their work ethic. It's the truth. You probably could not. Think about their work ethic. In the chat box also, please tell me, tell me in the chat box, are any of these people that you're talking about lazy guys who just sit at home and earn income from their parents' hard work? Any of them, gentlemen, any of them, even if they came from a position of privilege, they still put in the effort to set guys up, to set them apart from everybody else. So even as you come into the class, because this is the thing, gentlemen, no more excuses. Oh, it's too expensive. Yet you spent over 100,000 on that last holiday that you went. Aren't you, gentlemen? And we the ones who we read about, you sent your girlfriend on a holiday to Dubai. I mean, these are things that we hear about. Gentlemen, aren't we the ones who will spend over 100,000 shillings on a PlayStation in this room? Come on, see, let's be honest. We spent over 100,000 on that PlayStation that is in your room, plus games. So we're talking about how much did you spend this past weekend on sherehe, clubbing, going out? Any of these guys that you're putting down on the screen, they're not lazy guys who are sitting at home and waiting for things to land in their lap. They're willing to put money behind something that's important. So even when we tell you that the class is 48K, 48,000 shillings, $480, even when we say that, people are like, oh, I can't afford that. But you're spending that same money. I said, you spend that money on a PlayStation, or you're aiming to play that on a PlayStation and the big screen TV that's in front of you. Guys, what's our, no more excuses. This is a season in which we're going to work harder than we ever have. And that's the point, so that you set yourself apart. So that now you're being called to do things because you have set yourself apart. What are you doing to do that? None of these guys, all these names, Dr. Miles Monroe, go back and see how many projects he was doing at the same time. He's one of my heroes as well, Benson. He was writing 2 books at the same time, while preaching in his church, while delivering leadership training at the same time, while leading a family as well, and managing an estate. And we're in this room saying that it is the government, it is everything. We blame everyone else except ourselves. So yes, Dot, put together a clear vision. I thank you for that in the chat box. But once you've set the vision, you move towards it. And if you don't have the skill set, it is like trying to climb a mountain and you have no equipment. Sometimes you'll get up there, sometimes you'll fall. But if you have the equipment and the skill set and a trainer to get you there, the likelihood of success only increases. And that's what the Centonomy 101 program is going to do for you. So in your 30s, it is a season in which you're going to think about excellence and mastery. It's a season in which you're going to select your team. Now watch this. In your team selection, I forgot to mention this from the notes here. Think about those who have your ear. As I spoke about my brother who was speaking into my ear and challenging me and saying, what's going to set you apart from everybody else? Who is speaking into your ear and challenging you to be better than who you are? And it's about being in a community. Guys, one of the benefits of being in the Centonomy 101 class is you're in a community of people who want to get better, who are thinking like you, who now have the information like you, and who are starting the same journey. And so the challenge that brings that towards you is even greater, even as you get into it. One of the benefits of being there. And finally, it's a time to work harder than you ever have before. Guys, I want to get on to money in your 40s. Now, I'm just at the beginning of my 40s, so this is through research. This is dealing with guys. This is dealing with guys who have gone ahead of us, and all the guys who've been through the class, and also with being with other gentlemen who are my mentors as well. So these are notes that I've gotten from them. These are the things I'm trying to apply now to my life. I hope you guys are getting something out of this. In your 40s, it's about multiplication. Now, this is a season in which you want to make the most of every opportunity. Why? Why is that? Because this is probably the season that you're going to begin to earn the most that you ever have in your own life. This is a season in which your income generating potential is probably going to start peaking in this season, between your 40s and your 50s. So this is a time for multiplication. You don't want to be guessing anymore. It's not a season of exploration anymore. Okay, and I'm going to give context to this as we go along, but it's a season in which you don't want to be guessing anymore. You want to make sure that when that opportunity comes, you take that investment and you make the leaps now. This is not a season in which now you dabble on this. You've been dabbling, you've been trying, you've been mastering. This is a season in which when the opportunity comes, you make that deal now. When that job opening comes, this is the time that you put in your CV, because now you have mastered, and it's the moment that's going to open up for you the opportunity that you've never had before. You want to hit it like you've never hit it before. That's what it's about. So this is a season of multiplication. And watch this. This is what tends to happen. Guys, in the class we talk about this, but I'm going to give you some insights on this. This is what we tend to do, guys. we tend to do this. When our income increases, what tends to immediately follow is our expenses. So as we take this leap, I'm not saying that your expenses should not go up. I'm not saying that, but they should go up in a purposeful way that is now allowing you to multiply the effect of your income. Because this is what tends to happen, guys. This is what tends to happen. Your income increases, bang. So now you have that new job. And so so the temptation is immediately buy a big new car, move into a big new house. So you're paying a higher rent or doing other things. Move now and start. So the gap between your income and expenses remains so close that you have nothing that allows you to multiply, which is through the saving and investing plan that you're going to have. So it is a time also to be very sober-minded and say, guess what? The income has increased, but really, do I need those things that we're talking about right now? Can I get what is helping me towards those goals, but is also not stealing from my future, the one that I want to achieve? In the Centonomy 101 program, we always talk about a balanced approach. Why? Because it's not just about the future. I don't know how many of you get depressed when you attend financial sessions like this, and it seems like life only happens in the future. It doesn't happen today. No. I hope you heard that from Eli as well, that we're balancing it so that you're going on holiday today. Yes, you're enjoying that sherehe that you're talking about today, but it is not stealing from your future because you have control. So multiplication means this is a time to take the big investment leaps and do it when? Now. Because this is a wonderful time that gives you sufficient time generally when you talk about the stages of life that we're going through. It gives you sufficient time to complete projects. Because in your 40s, you have another 15, 20 years to be able to complete a mortgage or to complete a house or to complete the business plan that you're going to do before you're 60 and now start thinking retirement. I hope that's coming out clearly. So this is the time to make that investment. As we move on to our 50s, and that's what we're talking about here, as we move into money in your 50s, this is now time to keep building that nest egg. Because now is the time that we're beginning to bring, when we talk about consolidation, it's bringing things together. Because guess what? Write this down so you never forget it. Listen to what I'm saying. In retirement, it is your assets that are going to sustain you. So if you have not built up your assets by the time that you're getting towards your retirement, then your work now has to sustain you. And I'm trying to get us to think about it this way. If we can build that nest egg, this is still a season. Your 40s and 50s is still a season in which you're going to be having the greatest earning capacity of your life most of the time, okay? I told you I'm speaking in generality at this moment. This is a period in which you're going to have the biggest earning capacity of your life. And so it's the time to begin to set that nest egg that will eventually start paying back. So the priorities now start skewing towards getting those investments that are income generating as we get into our 50s, but it's still a multiplication phase, all right? And we talk about that even as we go on. We're going to take questions in a couple of minutes. Then we have thinking about that idea of committing towards income earning investments. I've already mentioned that as we're going, and I want us to think seriously about this. I give this as an example because many people retire and then are surprised because they spent their whole life building a house. So the asset that they have is their home, but they live in it. Yes, their home is worth millions of shillings or whatever currency you're in, but it has no ability to generate an income. Are we together? So guys, have you thought significantly about income earning assets that are going to sustain you? And do you know how much of them that you need in order to be able to be sustained? This is the issue that we have to face and we have to deal with. So you're starting to work to make sure that when you retire, you don't just retire with a house and a big car, because none of those things put money in your pocket. It's about finding the assets that will actually put money in your pocket. In the chat box, guys, can we type some of the assets that we believe are going to put money in our pocket when we are retired? And retired does not mean that you're not doing anything. It just means that now you can be able to relax a little bit more and it's not about income earning. What is it going to be? In the chat box, guys, what are the things that we're thinking about? Good. I love the ideas that we're talking about here. So rental income. So guys, can I burst a bubble for you just so that you understand? Rental income earns you, write this down so you don't forget, about 5% of the value of that property per year. Did you hear that? 5% per year. Now, yes, there's capital gains. The value of the property will increase and could increase faster than that. But in terms of cash flow, income, it only earns on average about 5% of the value. So how much rental property would you need in order for you to get there? If you're building a business, what kind of income must that business generate over this period of time in order for you to be able to sit back and receive from the business, whether you show up or not? With government bonds, this one is always a really good class, and we spend a whole class on government bonds because it's an investment area that people are not very familiar with. Well, majority of the class. So we talk about government bonds and unit trusts as well, because they are very popular investments, and it's important to understand how they work. Just to recognize, gentlemen, that government bonds they give you simple interest. They are not compounding investments. So yes, they're good for income, but you need to think about that even as we go. Agriculture means you're in business, Eric. Have you thought about how the business of agriculture is going to pay you? Do you have the mathematics in place? Guys, it's no longer just a dream. It's actually figuring it out as we go forward. I want us to think deeply about this. And so it is vital, even as we go forward, that we're going to address this as we go forward. So commit towards those income earning investments as you get into your 50s. Victor, could you repeat the fact about rental income? Yes, it's about 5% income per annum. 5% income, cash flow from rent. The value of the property may increase, but you see, you can't get the value of the property. You can't, unless you sell it. So what you're relying on is the cash that the rent that is being paid. And the rent, Victor, is about 5% of the value per year. So that's something we need to think about and understand. And that's a kind of understanding that you get, Victor, when you come into the class, because we spend sufficient time discussing these things. Let's talk about our 60s, even as we get towards the end of this, as I close this out. Money in your 60s, write it down, is about legacy, guys. Money is your 60s and beyond is about legacy. This is a time to teach and invest in others. And this is one of the areas, men, we've not been doing as well as we possibly can. And it's both ways. Many of us younger men don't look for those who have gone before us to teach us. I spend time with older men who are successful. In fact, it is an assignment in the 101 class that you must go and look for somebody who is successful, who is wealthy, and you must write down how they achieved their goal. Let me tell you, it changes your life. It changes my life every time I sit with someone. I was sitting down with a gentleman who's a successful business owner. He owns real estate. He distributes for EABL. He also has a large farm. And I was just listening to his story. I mean, he was just telling me his story. And you would think someone like that, life is just easy. No, they're pushing. The reason that guys have found success is even in his 60s. No, he's now in his 70s, sorry. Even in his 70s, he's still pushing and wondering, how do I get to the next level? Guys, success is not about just this soft life mystery that people talk about. Most of the guys that you wrote down in this list here, this list that you can see that you wrote down here, even in their later life, they're working harder than most of us. And then we wonder why it is that we don't have the success. So I want you to invest in looking for mentors. Now, please, here's the rule, guys, because this is a mistake that we make often. We have mentors who come into the room. I mean, these are guys who come and say, can you be my mentor? No, that's not the approach. You must become valuable to these people. The guy I was meeting with, this guy is a multimillionaire. I suspect in US dollars, I suspect. The likelihood is from the properties that I know. He was asking me I'm doing something for him over the next couple of weeks. And he was asking me what kind of facilitation fee that I need. I said nothing. I said zero. Why? Because I'm useful to him. And there's a sense of reciprocity that if this young guy is able to give this to me, there's a sense in which, oh, it's like you're my son and doing this for me. What can I do for you? If I'm ever in need and I go and sit at his office, do you think he's going to listen to me? Yes. So be of service to others. And in serving them, you will receive a mentorship. Now, to the gentlemen in this room who are older, and I know that there are not so many of us in this room, but for those of you who are in your 60s and beyond, please invest in us. Yes, gentlemen, please take us on and just share your stories with us. Write books. This is every time I meet somebody like that, I tell them, write down a book, because those books are the ones that open up the opportunity for us to be able to do it. Okay? All right. Next, give back. Come on, guys. Give back. By this time, there's a community that needs you. There's a group of young men that needs you. There's a school that you are part of that you could now go and build a classroom for. Even if you are not part of that school. Gentlemen, how many schools in this nation have no classes? They don't have chairs. They don't have roofs. If we as men only just decided to give back, what could change for our lives? What could change? But I want to give a word of encouragement. I want to give an encouragement to all the men who are in their 60s and beyond. It is time to rob the grave. I loved that somebody wrote down his name, Dr. Miles Monroe, here in the chat, and he spoke about this when he came to Kenya, and he told guys the graveyard is one of the wealthiest places because in that place is the business that was never started, the job that was never applied for, the book that was never written, the poetry that was never displayed, the artistry and mastery that was never shown into the world. Thank you, Moses. Leave everything on the field. And imagine now with the healthcare system that we have, thank you so much, Moses, with the kind of systems that are going on, people are living longer and longer. I know we talk about health, lifestyle choices and all that, but globally, if you think about it, the average life expectancy is generally increasing. So even in your 60s, you still have another 20, 30, 40 years to be able to go. So please rob the grave. Guys, I'm not kidding around anymore. It's no longer a joke and it's no longer a request. It is a requirement, guys, that we do the Centonomy 101 program. Why? And here's the thing. Let me put it in a way that men can understand. I love speaking to guys because guys are simple. We don't have many. If you say it in a way we understand, we just get it. Simple, like this. Let me put it this way. For the class, you can pay in installments, all right? You can pay in installments. You can make a registration. And today, as always in our sessions like this, we often give a registration discount, okay? Take that advantage today. Make the registration today, 1,000 bob, and then you pay in installments, all right? So the rest of the fee is payable in installments. It's, Nancy, just type the installment plan. I just realized that slide just disappeared from here. Just type the installment plan in the chat box so that we're able to do it. So it's 48,000 that you pay in 3 monthly installments, okay? Attend the class. You can pay the first installment. Come and try. I have been doing this now for over 8 years. I am yet to see anybody to come after the first module and say, you know what, this was not useful for me. I'm good. Can I get a refund and leave? Come and try. Try it. See if you're going to be getting into that same space. Guys, we said it at the beginning of this session, no more excuses. No more excuses. This is the time to take that. So take a quick screenshot of this. I just want to give a shout out to my brother, Mr. Simon Mbevi, Pastor Simon Mbevi, who's just joining us right now. He's been going through, guys, we support other men like this. And the honor that he has shown me. Let me just say this. He's been going through a very tough time with his family and some things. And even today, he was on the road trying to get to a place to be able to join us and to share his experiences with us. He's just managed to get into the room. He's taking care of his life. But he has said, you know what? Even for a few minutes, I'm going to share some insights with you. So guys, if you don't mind, I know it's a bit late, but can we put our hands together for Pastor Simon as he joins us? If you can put on your camera, Simon, and there we go. There you are. He stopped at a restaurant in order to just share, because life happens like that, but we are men. We take the hits, but keep moving, right? Pastor Simon, we have a couple of minutes. I know I'm not going to restrain you. Guys, if you have to leave, don't worry. This material will be available on our social media, on our YouTube and our Facebook. So in case you miss any of this and have to leave, it's okay. You'll be able to catch up on this. Pastor Simon, we waited for you. We are now ready to hear something good from your personal experiences about money in the stages of life.
Well, thank you very much. I really just want to apologize. It's been a hectic day today. But I said I would join for a few minutes. And I think Waithaka, I will pay this up the next meeting we have. I'll make sure that I can do the entire presentation that I prepared. But really proud of what Centonomy is doing. I really encourage everyone who has not taken the course to take it. And as I said, I'm not able to share too much. But let me just tell you a few things that I feel I did well, and others I did not do well, because I'm even just trying to connect with my my phone data, and I don't think it will last too long. But I said I must stop and at least say something. And for me, in my 20s, what's the time that I would have done more planning? I think, planning and having financial goals is really crucial. But I think nobody had really helped me in this area. So I did some planning, but not enough. I now look back and feel I would have done a lot more in terms of financial dreaming, because I had a lot of life ahead of me. And I began to say, I want to save towards this. I want to begin to do this because these are the goals I have. By the time I get to 50, I want to have achieved this. But I got late in that. So I appeal to those of you who are in your 20s, please start planning right now, dreaming of what you want, and then beginning to say, this is what success looks for me by the time I get to 50 or 60 or 70, and this is what will help me. And then number two, I think I learned some of the disciplines a little late of saving. Like I saved a bit in my 2023, and then I stopped for a while. And by the time I got back, life had really moved forward. And then I got married at 24. I think that threw me off a little bit because I had not then put a good plan. So those of you in your 20s, clarify your goals, clarify what you're about and what your streams of revenue are going to be, and then begin to pursue certain goals. And that will lead you to certain disciplines that will make sure that you get there. 30s is when you begin to settle down in the family. Again, I'm just really summarizing because I don't want to keep you. I think for me, I began to get children in my 30s. And I think that's the time, again, I should have, I started mid-30s. I should have started early 30s. When I began to plan about educational plans, how am I going to educate my children through high school and through college? Thankfully, now they're in college and God has helped me in spite of me starting late. But those of you who are there, this is when you begin, most of you are in family in the 30s and early 40s, begin to bring family together, agree on ways you're going to handle money, have a good plan, have some now family goals together with your wife, and begin to plan towards what you want to achieve by what time and what that means. Again, I'm glad in 30s I began to invest. That's when I invested in something that will give me money, a house that now I get some rental income from. And so I'm glad at least I did that and have some rental income, passive income coming in. But I would have done more. I think if I knew what I know now, So in my 40s is when I really matured in now using all the principles of finances that Centonomy teaches. And that's when I've done a lot better in terms of investments, in terms of planning my next 30 years. And now we have very clear goals with the family. That's when I began to teach my children those principles, beginning of my 40s. I'm now just getting to 50. I'm glad, Waithaka, that my children are using those principles now. My daughter just started working the other day, and she already has a money fund and a few other things. And I'm thinking, I wish I was like you, I knew these things. So preparing your children as well to understand how to handle money. We now do family planning together, budgeting, following up our money. So some things I missed earlier, now I am doing, but I'm glad that at least I've caught up, at least we have more investments and we are able to prepare well. In late 30s and early 40s as I close, Waithaka, is a lot of people begin to have midlife crisis. Oh, I've not done well. They begin to panic. I have worked with a lot of men who are panicking. Now I don't have time to invest. What will I do? My children are in college. I can't do. Well, start wherever you are right now. That's why if you have not done Centonomy, do it right away so that you may learn. It's never too gotten these principles. But from next year, I'm planning way better through these stages. And number one, make sure you're careful about debt. I got into debt when I was in my 30s and it troubled me. It was big debt. It troubled me for a while. I had not planned well. I got into a debt which wasn't well planned, and it really got me into trouble for a while. I think for almost 5 years, I was in a bad place. But I'm glad I'm out of it, and I'm able to plan my life way better. So be careful about debt. That's one thing I've learned. Number two, plan in advance. Plan in advance. I did not do as well in some things, but now I have done, and I'm glad that I'm able to pursue that. Thirdly, save and invest. Yeah. These are the principles Centonomy teaches. Save and invest in ways that will give you passive money at the right time. And lastly, give generously. I think I've come to realize, Waithaka, that as I give to other people and as I give to God's cause and to the poor, God blesses me with some open doors that I didn't even know or are not planned for. So I think that's what I would say in a hurry. I think what I'll do, Waithaka, I'll share some of the notes with you and some of the people as they come to class, you can share what I prepared. But thank you guys. I really, I'm sorry. I take responsibility and apologize. But thanks for the prayers as well as I handle some family matters. Thank you.
Yeah. Pastor Simon, you owe me nothing. You have given so much even in this couple of minutes, and you have given so much of your life. You owe me nothing at all. And we have benefited even from what we're getting just now. And someone here in the chat box is saying, thanks for being vulnerable with us as men and showing this, life is the realities of life. I love that last point. Give generously. If you want, this life is about reciprocity. And I just before you came on, I was telling guys, give. Don't expect to be given. Give first. Give, and you will find it being returned to you, no matter what, as we go along the way. I really appreciate you. Take care. God bless even as you go forward. And thank you for showing up. Please do share those notes, and we'll be able to share with everybody who came into the session. This is the time. At the beginning of this session, we said no more excuses. No more excuses. We have the opportunities ahead of us. We have the things that are going to grow. And so this is the time, guys. I want you to take advantage of the opportunity that is in front of you. We have offered, just 1 second. There we go. We have offered a registration discount so that you make the commitment now, guys. No more excuses. Make the commitment right now. As you join the class, make that registration now of just 1,000 bob, and then the rest will be payable in installments. What we put down in the chat box there just a couple of minutes ago. Very easy installments, 16,000 the first installment, 16 the next, and 12,500 for the next. we're going to get to the goals that we have along the way. Guys, try it out, because it's very difficult for us to put in over 30 hours of training material into a 2-hour session like this, and also give content around masculinity and what it means to build wealth as men in the different stages of our lives. Come and try it out. Make that commitment. No more excuses as we go along. Take a quick screenshot of this. If you're outside of Kenya, we are able to take a registration fee of only $10, which is a little bit more than the 1,000 shillings, but at least it gets you in. So 10 USD if you're outside of Kenya. And then please send the payment details to the email on the screen, nancy@centonomy.com. Nancy Okech is the one who runs our personal finance program, Centonomy 101, and she'll assist you with any of the issues that you may have, getting you on board. If you make the payments using the pay bill number that's on the screen, we'll reach out to you and send you all the details even as we go forward. We're about to take questions. If Pastor Simon, you're still around, so if you need to leave, it's fine. There's no problem. We do understand there was quite some pressure this today, and it's difficult to share all the different things that are there. So we'll take some questions, and I'm going to go to the Q&A section just now. So I encourage you, save that 500 shillings today, that $5 US, make the registration today and plan to make it. This is how the classes work. You do 1 class per week for 12 weeks. So during the week, the classes run from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. East African time. And then on Saturday, they run from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. A time like this is when you would be finishing the class, just before this, half an hour before this. So you can select whether you come during the week or on Saturday. It is flexible because you only come for 1 class, all right? Because we know you're busy and you're doing other things, and we also want you to go and implement the things we're talking about. So over those 12 weeks, you're going to be doing the modules that are listed on the screen now. So we start off with understanding money, planning, debt, setting goals, and then we get into investment classes that are taught by investment experts. These are people who are actually in the field doing managing funds, buying and selling shares, buying and selling property, managing property, understanding the stock market. This is who we're talking about. We get industry experts to come and share what works. They're not coming to sell you anything. They're coming to share what works. We also learn about insurance from an insurance broker, and they're not selling you insurance. They're coming in to tell you what works as far as insurance is concerned. We learn estate planning from a lawyer to help you to put together a good plan, taxes from a tax expert, and then we put your financial plan into a 5-year financial plan that includes all the various things that we're talking about here. Guys, no more excuses. We cannot sit back and expect to be successful. As I said at the beginning of this session, our magazines and the media give a poor perspective on how men are doing because they show the top 0.0, 0.0001% of the men, because they're the ones who tend to be extremely successful. But please note this, globally, women are now doing better, especially those who are involved in the productive economy. Women are doing better as far as their long-term finances are concerned than men, because men were not investing in ourselves, and it is time to invest in ourselves. So take a quick screenshot of this, make that payment today, make the commitment, because when you make a commitment, then it gives you, you already put some money down. I might as well show up for the class. And when you show up for the class, you will be changed. I guarantee that for sure. I'm yet to see a single person come and say, this was not useful for me in my 8 years of working at Centonomy and more years working with Centonomy in the stories that I told you. So excellent. Now we're going to take some questions. I'm going to the Q&A section. So that we can be able to go through this. One of the challenges with exploring is that organizations are not even willing to get you in, despite the fact that they are not paying you. How can we handle that? Listen, I'm going to be as honest as I can be. That's not an excuse anymore. Are there others who are getting that job? Yes. How do we do it? Give. And give in environments that you're not expecting to give. Okay. With that question, I found that my connections through other things were what opened the door for me. Just like for Johnson Mwakazi, he was excellent at the projects that we were doing together when we were doing some marketing work with him. And that opened the door for him to get a call from Jimmy Gath, which opened the door for him to get a job at Citizen TV. For me, my connections within the marketing space, within the production space, within my church. So even within your community, you will find opportunity if you are a person of use. Let me tell you this. All those people who are saying there are no jobs available, please open up any job website today. There are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of jobs available. The problem is the people to fill those jobs. So here's the thing, opportunities stand in front of us. It's about us taking care of it. Kindly address those who are in their 40s who lost everything due to COVID-19. Oh my goodness. How do you start again and where do we start? That's such an honest question and such a vulnerable question. My brother, that's why I used that example of Rocky. I know, please, movies transcend. They show us some of the things that we aspire to in a very short period of time in a concise way. So I'm not trying to say that life is a movie, but the story of Rocky, if you watch it, and that's why I used it, it inspires me. He went through ups and downs, and there was a point at which he lost everything. But he was able to say, you know what, I have my experience, I have my background, what can I do? In the example of the video that I showed earlier on, he was about to do one more fight, and he was training to go and fight for it. The likelihood of him winning was very low, but guess what? It would have brought in some income. It was something that he was not expecting to continue to do, but it opened up doors. Here's the thing, Zion. Even if you lost everything, and that's hard, and I'm not glossing over this. I'm not trying to say it's going to be easy, and I'm not trying to say that it's sunshine and what was it, and rainbows. But guess what, Zion? You have experience. That means you have a network of people around you who saw the work that you're able to do. You can draw on the relationships that you have, and you can start again. It's just about starting again. If you sit down and put your mind to it, you will find a way to begin. I pray that you take that chance to do. I repeated this part. Let me go to the next question. What does it mean? What does money mean in your 20s? We talked about it earlier on. I saw guys were taking notes on this fact. Where was that in my notes? It has disappeared. There's someone presenter view. So in the 20s, we talked about exploration, and you heard it from Eli's examples, yeah? Exploration, and you're focusing on generating income. You're focusing on controlling your money at that point. And then it is to start and saving, investing now. So that's the process. And Pastor Simon talked about that. I told you we didn't coordinate. I just told them, you tell real stories from your life that you can be able to use. Great. Which are the best passive income streams that you can advise someone in your 20s? None. Okay, let me be real. I know that sounds harsh, but I'm being clear. In your 20s, you're not looking for passive income. In your 20s, most of the time when you're starting out, you're looking for growth. That means whatever income is coming in, you're reapplying it and growing. The likelihood for you to generate enough passive income in your 20s is quite low because you need large sums to generate sufficient passive income. So as I said, your target for your 20s is to generate income. So you're trying to apply yourself in whatever fields you are in order to generate income that you're going to invest in order to grow over time. Passive income is a goal for your 60s and beyond, okay? So let's shift that. At your 30s, what would you advise to relocate to a different country, or is it too much of a risk? Oof, that's a loaded question. But as I said, in your 30s, and we talked about it earlier on, we said in your 30s, we're talking about establishing yourself. So guess what? Eli is an example of that. He's moved and he's settled in his 30s and he's starting something. I mean, he's focusing on something at this point. If it allows you to establish yourself so that now you're going to achieve mastery over this period of time, then yes. I've been recently finding myself having to tell people no because everyone around you is asking you for money. I just got a high level promotion and the people think I have a lot of money. Would you share your experience? Yes, that is good. And so saying no is not for the sake of saying no. We have talked about it in this session, men, haven't we talked about it and said it's about generosity? We have said that, isn't it? Yeah, we talked about it as being generous just now. That's not the idea. Where did the question go? There we go. When you say no, it's not because you don't want to give. It is because you have something more purposeful to do with the resource that you have. And that's one of the focuses of the Centonomy 101 class. If you heard from early on in the videos that we're talking about, I have a goal for my money. If you don't have a plan for your money, everyone else has a plan for your money. So I have a goal for my money, and therefore I say no in certain situations because I am thinking of the other thing that this money is supposed to do. Let's make this as real as possible. If I have 1,000 shillings in my hand, right? And if this is the 1,000 shillings is supposed to feed my family at home, and I'm supposed to go and do shopping. If you came and said, oh, can you lend me 500 shillings? I have to think really hard because guess what? I have to feed my family at home. That's the only 1,000 shillings to feed my family at home, okay? So if I'm to give you 500, that means I'm giving up something else. Is what you're asking for worth it? No. And here's the thing, gentlemen, you cannot solve the problems of the world. There'll always be problems on earth. So you'd better be purposeful about the problems that you're trying to solve. So say no, but not saying no out of being mean or being a miser, but because you're being purposeful. There is something else that you're trying to achieve. And therefore, the no comes not to force people and not to be mean, but rather to be purposeful along the way. That's a really good question. What is the best savings plan that you'd advise someone in their 20s earning about 10K per month to save as much as you possibly can? You look for, and here's the thing, most of the savings options that you're talking about, so you're talking about a savings account in a bank, a fixed deposit, money market fund, or for instance, saving in a SACCO. All of them give relatively similar rates of return and relatively similar risk profile. So the issue is not which saving you're choosing, but that you're saving. So start. But the other thing is, what are you saving towards? So one of the things that we talk about in the class is setting savings goals. You're saving towards what? One of the major goals that you want to start off thinking about is replacing, at least having about 6 months of your income in a savings account. And on average, it takes between 3 to 5 years to save that up. So that becomes your savings goal. So don't be too worried about the saving option. Those are the major saving options that are available so that you can be able to use them and grow from that perspective. Best passive income in your 50s as you begin to get into that same space. Look, investments, let me talk about this. The best investment is the one that matches your goal. In case you didn't write that down, write it down. Best investment is the one that matches your goal. That's a general principle. Let's take that further and say the best investment for you is the one that matches your goal and that you understand and are interested in. So passive income, you're talking about rental income. You're talking about things like government bonds and treasury bills, dividends. You've listed them already on the screen, or you already have a picture of what they are. So the question about it is, which one do you understand and which one are you most, how would I say, comfortable going to? So why do I say this, Kariuki? I say this because each one of us, as we started this session, are different. Each one of us is different. Sorry, poor English. Each one of us is different. In my community, there are some people who are more comfortable running their business and they're doing a good job because that's the thing that they're passionate about. I have others who are my mentors who are doing rental properties and that's what they're good about. They enjoy it. There are others who are leveraging on the financial tools like government treasury bonds and bills. So you will select the one that you are most comfortable with and understand the most. How much should I save from my total monthly earnings as a percentage? At Centonomy, we never talk about percentages. Why? We talk about, Daniel, we talk about goal-oriented investment, goal-based investment, not percentages. Percentages are what you use to train your children in primary school and in house, tell them 10%, whatever it is. Because for them, it's a habit you're trying to build. But when you get to adulthood, and we're all adulting here, you don't save a percentage. Because what does a percentage mean? What's the outcome of that percentage? It'll give you what? We don't know. So when it comes to your investment and your saving, it should be towards a goal. I want to, like the person who was saying, I earn 10,000 shillings. No problem. So my goal is to have 60,000 shillings in a savings account so that if I lose my income for a period of time, I can survive for 6 months without having to worry. Do you see that that's a powerful goal, Daniel? So I am now going to look at my income and say, how much of that will get me to 60,000 shillings the fastest possible, not a percentage. Guys, good questions. Hi, how do you handle transition from employment to self-employment in your 40s? When is your side hustle can fully recover your investment debts? And is it advisable? Is it advisable? Is it advisable? How do you handle transition? It's a very interesting space, right? It's an interesting space. How do I say this, Frank? Business is a skill set. I highly recommend before you make the leap, make the investment in the Centonomy Entrepreneur Program. Why? Because you will learn the skill set of how a business works. And like me, you can be a great project manager, but maybe not have the skill set to run a business. There's a difference in the skill set. So how do you handle that transition? Learn as much as you possibly can, Frank, about business before you move into it. Because running a side hustle is not the same as running a profitable business. Many times, those skills are not transferable. And so I would recommend investing in that knowledge before you get there. Kindly repeat the available savings options that we have. Savings, you have a savings account in a bank, fixed deposit account in a bank. Money market fund is a good savings tool. SACCO savings are good. Those are all kind of relatively same risk profile and can get you similar returns even along the way. Great question. Lawrence, at what point should one start saving, investing for retirement? As early as humanly possible. Gentlemen, no more excuses. This is the time to invest in yourself, get into the class, because it will change your life. Where are the class details? Let me put them up on the screen for you right now. There we go. Make that registration, commit. The class starts, as we said earlier on the 8th of June. So we have a couple of weeks before that comes up, but it's going to shift your life in ways that you cannot believe, because you will be challenged. Just like a coach challenges you to see things differently, that's what this program is. It is group coaching to help you to see your life differently. And it's an investment you don't want to miss out. Take that opportunity today, make that investment. If you're having any issues with the registration process, Isaac, how can I learn to invest in shares? You sign up for the Centonomy 101 program, which is up on the screen right now. We have a whole 2.5-hour class that is taught by a fund manager who invests in shares. That's their job, to teach you how it works for you. This is what we're aiming for. Chris is asking, are there investment systems that have rates higher than 10% per annum? Yes, there are. Many of them. I don't know what you want to say. Capital gains on real estate in certain areas have a higher return on that. Some businesses are able to pay dividends at a higher rate than that. Government bonds at this moment in Kenya are giving a higher rate than that. I don't know what that means. Hello, Waithaka, what can you use as a benchmark for your income level? You're supposed to be earning in the age gap that you are. Use 25 to 30. My brother. How much do you want? Let's stop trying to benchmark with other people and saying that's what, oh, that person is at that level, there should be there. No, what do you want? And that's one of the central questions that we ask in the 101 program. What do you want to achieve? So set the benchmark for yourself. Say, I want to live a certain life in this way. What would it require of me in order for me to be able to move in that direction? What would it require of me? All the classes are virtual. And so you can be able to take them from wherever you are. The experience is similar to what we've gone through here. The difference is we usually send notes in advance, and we send a manual with you. We send tools. We send tools that you can be able to use. I'll give you an example of the tools that we have. Those who were talking about debt earlier on, we share like an amortization. This is a tool that we use in the class. So you can be able to see what your debt actually looks like. If you borrow 1.7 million at 15% for 5 years, what does that cost you? Costs you 40,000 shillings per month for 60 months, and you pay 726,000 shillings in interest alone. So you did not pay 1.7 for that car that you borrowed 1.7 for. You paid 1.7 plus 726 over 2.4 million shillings. These are the kind of tools we send to you in the class so that you're able to use that even as you grow. All right. I don't think there are any other questions that, oh no, there's some here in the chat box. Thank you for showing that to me. Thanks, team, for that. Let me go back to that. So what do you want is the question around that, and you aim at a goal that you want to be able to achieve. Great. 37, I lost everything in COVID. Okay, that I think we answered that. Hello. At what rate does real estate grow for a period of 10 years? So Hosea, it depends on the area. Real estate in terms of capital gains is based on the supply and demand factors, okay? So in certain areas, there's higher demand, and so the rate will increase. In other areas, there's lower demand, so maybe the rate is lower. So it's a supply-demand question. How much does it cost to learn how to invest in shares? It costs, excuse me, sorry. That up on the screen. It's there on the screen. 48,000 shillings to attend the Centonomy 101 program. You don't want to miss out on it. We have different risk appetites. That's one of the key lessons. Yes, that is different for everybody. Now, we never invest in line with your personality or your personal risk appetite. You invest in line with your goal. Because if you invest in your risk appetite, you will miss out on half the goals that you have. Why? Because you should have a savings goal, which should have a low risk appetite, and you should have an investment goal, which should have a higher risk appetite. Why? Because not you just want risk. In fact, risk appetite is a poor terminology to use. No one wants risk, really. No one wants the likelihood of failure, right? No, that's not what you're aiming for. What you want is a certain level of return. So you match the investments that have the rate of return that you require, and then mitigate and pick the one with the lowest risk. So we don't invest in line with our risk appetite. Gentlemen, we have gone half an hour over the time that we are supposed to be, but I applaud you because we still have hundreds of men in this room who are determined to get this, but it doesn't end here, guys. It starts in the class. All right? Get into the class, make that commitment today, and you will see the shift in your lifetime, okay? Take that screenshot so that you're able to make that commitment now, and we'll see you in class. A big thank you to Eli Mwenda as well for the time that he gave us. A big thank you to Mr. Simon Mbevi as well. Even in difficult times, I told you, men, we carry a lot of things. He was on the road. He's helping his family at this point, and he still sat down somewhere in order to give. Can you imagine what that means? Do you know what kind of social capital he has built with us in this room because of giving like that? Guys, this is amazing. Thank you so much, guys. God bless you all. Have a wonderful weekend. I know we're all kind of trying to relax a little bit. When you get back to work, put everything you've got into it. It has been a pleasure. You guys are amazing. I appreciate everybody. Oh, I'm in Kisumu and I will be attending the class weekly. Yes, that's it, guys. No more excuses. No more excuses. Wherever you are in the world, no more excuses. Take care, man. Let's go out and do it.